So my lesson today is lesson 5, full of patience, which I'm not. This is probably the hardest one for me. If I think of fruits of the Spirit, I would land on this one and say, this is the one that I have the hardest time with. You can ask my wife, she will tell you the same thing. I don't have very much patience. I try to, but somehow I continually fail. So as we start this, we're going to talk about a man who we all know, Job. Now, Job, you read the first 10 chapters, that's a pretty rough life. Pretty rough life. I mean, if we had all the things that happened to Job happen to us, how many of us would still have patience? It was interesting reading this that Job's relationship with God is what brought Satan to him. God seen that they had a special relationship, and Satan went to God and said, I know who I could get. Your man Job there will cease to believe and worship you if you let me have him and do basically whatever I want to do. God said, you know what? You're wrong. You can do anything you need to Job, but you can't kill him. So what happens? Man, the things that go wrong, your fields burn down, your cattle die, your sheep die, everything dies, your kids die, everything died. Everything died but his wife. Now, I've often wondered why God left his wife with Job. Now, how many of us guys in here would be upset if this happened to our wives? We'd be upset. How many of our wives would be upset if this was happening to us? I would say all of them. The devil knew that Job's wife wasn't like Job. And the fact that she didn't have as much faith in God as Job did. And why I believe that is when she says, Job, in chapter 2, she says, Job, why don't you just curse God and die? Ooh. Now, I might be wrong on that. If I am, I'm sorry. But that's just in my mind, that's what I'm thinking. I would follow my wife wherever she needed me to go. I would do things for my wife that I might not do for other people. Job loved his wife, no doubt. But that's just me reading the story. Now, if that's the case, I'm really not sure. But reading the story, it sounds to me like that was why.
You've got to consider that she is going through this herself. She helped bury 10 kids. She is watching her wealth.
She also lost everything.
Yes.
She also lost everything.
So that colors the
And you're right, it does. It colors the
reaction.
parameters of what's going on. What I saw was Job stayed solid, and his wife was upset. And rightfully so. All of us would be upset if all that happened to us. Job's friends come to him, and I think it was for 7 days they didn't talk. They just sat with Job in the ashes. Didn't say a word to him. How many of us have a friend like that? Not many. If we all have one friend that would be like that in our lifetime, we are blessed. He had his friends come to him and stay with him. But after all the stuff going on, they finally said, Job, God's doing this to you. What did you do? What did you do? No, you got to blame it on somebody, don't you? I had somebody to me say, well, it's God's fault. This happened to my child. I said, hold it. Stop. I said, do we ever blame the devil, Satan, when things go bad? And he just looked at me. I said, I'm just asking. We always blame the easiest thing it is to blame. Right? We blame the easiest thing there is to blame. They blamed God. Job did not lose his faith. Job's actually saying, it must be something that I did that's causing all this. What is the hard part of this story for us?
Part of it is that God initiated the conversation.
We have a hard time wondering why God allowed this to take place. And the story is real easy to follow because Satan comes to God, says, God, blah, 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 then go ahead, you can do everything but kill him. We all know that patience is one of those words to me that's got can have 20 different words that mean, this close to the same thing. You have patience, but you have fortitude. I'm sticking to my guns. That can be patience. Because sometimes patience can be looked on as laziness. Or you're not moving because I'm being patient. No, you're being lazy. You would go do this and this and that. Well, hold up a minute. No, I'm waiting on certain things to get in line before I go and do this. That's patience. When Mary was pregnant with our first child, Corey, our first child, I didn't have much patience, and neither did she. We were ready to see this baby. But when you have your first child, when you have your first grandchild, you find out that patience is a whole lot more important. Because everything that happens with children happens on their time frame, not my time frame. I had a good friend, his father told him to go take the garbage out. We were sitting watching TV. It was my friend's older brother. We were sitting watching TV. Well, he got up, went, took the garbage out, come back and sat down right where he had been sat. Dad come back into the house, see him sitting there, and assumed that he didn't go take the garbage out. And his father had no patience for it. I told you to get up and, well, then he had egg on his face when his son said, Dad, I already did it. The father didn't have patience. Father didn't ask, son, did you go take the garbage out like I asked you to? Because he had come and sat right in the same spot, the father thought, hey, he didn't. The father didn't have patience. What do we show when we don't have patience? We can show our bad side. It's also a lack of faith, right?
I
We-
look at this, there's two stories we get for the Christians. One is the struggles that Job had, which showed he had inner strength, that what the Spirit gave him, that he could battle this, like we have to battle Satan all the time. The other one is the lady that had reason to curse God or whatever, and unfaithful to God, but she also understood God was faithful, and yet she didn't appeal to God. She let Satan, as the flesh will let you do. We have to avoid the flesh, as she didn't in this case.
You're right, two stories. And I was saying that his wife was left just because, and I think sometimes as husbands, when we fight for our wife tooth and nail, right? I know in the past couple years, running my mouth and not letting my wife do what my wife needed to do got me in trouble. Because was out of patience that quick. And I was taking up for her, but what I needed to understand, she has patience and she didn't need me to take up for her. That's where I was kind of getting with this. She was out of patience. She had already went through all the struggles Job went through. Where would I have been if I was her?
Which she also seems to be the mother of the last 10 kids. So, got to keep that in mind.
The story of Job is it's one of those stories you read and we see and we understand. I don't think we understand. I don't think we understand how God worked with Job in this. Because you know why? Because we see that much of the story. That much of the story. We don't know anything else that was going on. We just read what we're reading. There's a country song called "If You've Seen It in Color," talking about everything's different. You think you might know, but when you see it in color, it changes your perspective. God has a larger context, a larger view of what's going on in the world and in Job's world. See, I think that's one thing we don't understand. Why is this taking place? Why don't God do something? Well, if he wasn't doing something, I'd hate to see what the world was like. I mean, we think it's bad, but if he wasn't have his hand in the world like the Bible says he has his hands in the world, I'd hate to see what it would be like. We look at patience. Guy here, he's got 3 more weeks of treatment. Hasn't been sick. He's been going through a week. But he has to have the patience to get through that 3 weeks. I know he's got that patience. When you want to be healed, when you want something, I see it in football players. If you ever played a sport, I played football, I got hurt. Doctor told me, you can't play in your homecoming game. I said, oh no, wrong. And he gave me, you have to do this in order to do this. I made sure I did that. Matter of fact, it come down to where he came to the weight room to see if I was telling the truth. Because he said, I never thought you would be able to do it. I had something I wanted. So I did what I needed to do and was able to play in the homecoming game. We don't see the end game. A lot of times we don't see the end game. The end game for me is, guess what? It was this shoulder. I can get it up about this high now. I can't get it up above my head. It hurts. It's a reminder. Sometimes pain is a reminder. Scars are reminders. The scar on my nose here, at the bridge of my nose, my brother hit me with a Kirby vacuum cleaner hose that had a metal piece on the end of the hose. He swung it over his head, whacked me right there. Scars are reminders. Job is living a reminder every day. Every day. Boy, I don't know, it's just, as we read the story, our patience, God's patience shows his sovereignty. Shows who's in charge. Shows God is in charge. The old saying, if you want to hear God laugh, tell him your plans. Been there. I wasn't supposed to be here right now. I was supposed to be in California and working at a children's home. But yet, here I am. A kid that from Michigan goes to Tennessee to school, meets a girl, they get married. That was never in my plans. My plans was just get out of Michigan. That's why I went to school. But my patience, though small, I can tell you I knew who was in charge because of things that happened along the way. God's patience. You look at the children of Israel, 400 years. You're over here, 400 years later, okay, you can come back. God's patience. We get these quiet moments. Has anybody ever heard God speak to him? If you have to, as I always told the kids in high school, in junior high class when we were sponsors, you listen with your ears, not your mouth. Guys, listen with your ears when your wife's talking to you, not your mouth. Because guys want to fix everything, and women just want to say, this is the problem. They don't want it fixed, not necessarily. They just want to tell you. They want to tell you what happened with the grandchild today, or what the granddaughter called and talked to me, and this is going on. I don't want to hear that. But I'll try and fix it for you. You can't. God is in charge. Let God fix it, because he will when we give ourselves up to him and let him do it. Another thing patience teaches is kind of almost the same thing, but God moves first. Nothing we get comes because I told God to do this. Nothing. We can't tell God to do it now. It would be kind of like my boss at work telling me, you need to go do this now. And me just looking at him like, not really. I'm not saying that God doesn't listen to us or that I don't listen to my boss. But we give God his place and respect it. His sovereignty, his love for us, first off, tells me that he is going to do what he told us he was going to do. We see that all the way in the Old Testament, all the way through the Old Testament. The things God said that was going to happen, and the things he was going to do did not change. When he destroyed, when Moses had trouble with the children of Israel, Moses was talking to God, and God said, you know what, I'm going to wipe them all out. And we're going to start fresh. And Moses stood up for the children of Israel and said, God, if you do that, you're going to look weak to the Israelites, or to the whatever. You're going to look weak. If you do that, you're going to look weak. Now, imagine that conversation. But Moses had a relationship with God. Like, if we have a relationship with God, we can say, God, please, please do this. Show them your strength, because they don't believe you can do it. We read stories all the time about things that happened that the doctor said there ain't no way this man will live until tomorrow, and he's been alive for 35 years. Because God is in charge and we are not. There is no timetable. We don't have a timetable. We just need to realize that God is our God, and that he makes the first move. And his first move is listening to us. God listens to everything. That's the one thing. Has anybody seen Bruce Almighty? Or, well, here we go. When God is talking and he is like, God says, all right, you want to be God? Here you go. Then he's trying to cover up his ears, and because everybody is talking at once. That scene was really hilarious to me, but it really brought home something. It brought home that God takes all these requests and he knows every one of them and knows whose heart it came from. Things from a 4-year-old asking for a bike to an adult asking for a brand new car, and how do those requests get answered and filled? God has patience with us. We need to have patience with him. See, because patience, our patience, is the bridge that gets us to God. Because without our patience, it's like I said, so our kids come to, I want this and I want it today. I want it now. All righty. We'll see how that works for you. Because that's not how your kid builds a bridge from father to son, from daughter to father. That's not how that happens. That's when they come to you, Dad, I really got something I want to talk to you about. I learned a big lesson about the things, you think you tell kids things and they don't listen. So everybody knows I work at Ford Motor Company. Most people know I drive Fords. And I had said at one time, there will be nothing but Fords in my driveway. Not going to have anything else. If I'm buying it, it's going to be a Ford. So move forward 10 years, Corey makes a phone call to me. Dad, got to talk to you about something. I'm thinking about getting this Honda Civic that I want. I just wanted to ask what you think. Now let me tell you what, it touched the heart. And again, God put words that I couldn't come up with, but gave the answer. I said, son, you're starting your own family. You make the rules. But you said I could never have it in if you drive my grandkids up here to me, you can have it. I don't care if you drive a horse and buggy. You're making your rules for your household. We cannot move forward without patience. Patience are that look before you leap. If you look before you leap, a lot of times you can see things farther ahead. That's why they have home inspections, so you don't look before you leap. You look at this house and say, oh, I love that house. That's the one I'm going to buy. Then the inspector comes back and says, well, the plumbing's bad, the roof is bad, this is bad, and this and this and this and this and this. Well, all of a sudden, if I want to say, yeah, I'm buying that house right now. Look before you leap. Patience. Were we going to get a house? Yes. Was it the first one we looked at? No. It's like, so, y'all know I drove a little red Ford Focus for about 9 years. I wanted a truck, and I got a Focus. Why did I get a Focus? Because at the time, that's what I could afford. At the time, the money wasn't there without taking money away from the kids, my wife, my house. I could have got a truck, but it would have set us back. 9 years later, I have my truck. I believe it's because I had patience to understand that I might not get what I want today, but down the road, I will be blessed enough to be able to do what I want to do. God's patience with us should assure us, give us the assurance that he will do what he told us. We don't get all the answers. The Bible even says, listen, there's some questions. You have questions. Oh, there's a lot of questions you have, but you're not getting all the answers. But when you get to heaven, you'll learn things.
God's delay is not God's denial.
That's it.
His delay is not his denial. We may not know justice until we see it in heaven, even though there's murder and all these things. Some people get by with it, they have second cases, trying to open those cases, and they solve them. But if they're not solved, God's going to take care of it.
We see a lot of bad things happen in this world. And like Bruce just said, we see a lot of people get off on crimes and we're going, oh my goodness. It looks so obvious. How in the world did they not get convicted? As Bruce just said, the day will come where God says, excuse me, you hurt a little child, and I'll read the verse to you, what's going to happen to you because of it. You're going to have a millstone around your neck and thrown into the lake of fire. Patience. When we want vengeance, when something happens in our life that it's just so, makes us so upset, and we do lose our patience sometimes, like, God, why did that happen? We can't do that. Because God will take care of us. And we will see in the end the justice he serves is everlasting. Job. Fruit of the Spirit, patience. I ask you all pray for me that I get more patience, because that is the one I struggle with. Job did not struggle with patience. And I think one of the best parts of the story of Job is when Job and God are talking, and Job says, why did you do this? And why did you do that? And God says, hold up. Where were you when I laid the cornerstones of the earth? Where were you when I measured all this out? And Job says, hold up. You're right. You're in charge. I am not. I thank you all for your patience. You all have a wonderful week.